Hello and welcome to the Wrap Up Live. This is the official Raptors Republic live post-game show and podcast where we recap and we have some fun talking about the latest Raptors game. Tonight, the latest Raptors game that just finished was the second game for Toronto in Miami, which is pretty weird. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I thought leading up to this game that this game was in Toronto for some reason because I wasn't expecting 2 Miami games in 3 days, but sure. I mean, we'll take it. I'm your host, Sahal Abdi. I'm here with my 2 other guys, and hopefully we'll get Aiden Moss on later tonight, Oren Weisfeld and Kyle Brickman. The producer of the show, as always, is Keon Haddad. And guys, Toronto Raptors defeated the Miami Heat 98-90. This was a good defensive game. I told Oren and Kyle and the guys that I'm not a big fan of Miami Heat games because they kind of turn out like this, where they're just grinded out extremely defensive games. And Bam Adebayo, for some reason, just continues to get superstar calls, which I just don't understand until the referees realize it's playoff time, and then they stop giving him those calls. These Toronto Raptors are 2-2 in the new NBA season. Oren, Kyle, what did you guys see in this game? Did you guys like the end there where the Raptors took control in the fourth quarter? What's the first thing you guys want to bring up from this game? Oren, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, we can get to the end and how they close it out, but I think general impression for me was like, I was just curious how the Raptors would come out after what happened a couple nights ago, which was, Precious said at post game, like they got bullied, right? Welcome to the show, Aiden. Nice to have the whole gang back. It's actually really nice to have the whole gang back. Let's just acknowledge that.
The boys are back.
Yeah.
The first show we've all been together. This is nice. But yeah, I guess I'm just saying, like, I was curious to see how they would start this game after being bullied, just being the less physical team a couple nights ago, being the team that did not control the game a couple nights ago. And I was just really impressed in that regard, where the Raptors came in with a clear focus and a defensive intensity that they carried throughout the entire 48 minutes defensively, I would say. And we can talk about the end and some of the offense that was just enough to get it there, but definitely a defensive win and just like an impressive character win from a team that, like I said, got bullied a couple of nights ago and bounced back nicely.
Yeah, it's fitting that Precious is the one that mentioned like getting bullied, because he was the bully tonight. 22 boards is kind of absurd. He had 10 boards in 9 minutes or something, 10 boards in his first 10 minutes. It was ridiculous. I thought that Matt Devlin had misspoke when he said that Precious had like 5 and 10. I thought he meant 10 minutes played or something, but he was all over the glass in a ridiculous way. If you look down the box score and just in general, like the Raptors shot 39.5% from the field tonight. You need guys who are going to generate extra possessions if your offense is going to be that bad. It was a brutal offensive night. It was frankly a kind of an ugly game. And I mean that in a loving way, but this is a really ugly game. And you need guys who are going to generate extra shots if you're shooting 40% from the field.
Aiden, you came a little bit late, but coming from the guy who told us pregame that he loves watching Miami Raptors games, right? Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors games. What did you think about the way that game ended, or just any general takeaways you had from the game?
Yeah, I'm showing my age by enjoying the gruesome, methodical. I think it's not that I enjoy them. It's just it's nice to see something different than the run and gun 130 to 120 point games. And these guys both sides play extremely aggressive defense and physical defense. And I like Toronto kind of they have different identities and I think it's part of their youth, but sometimes they don't lock in defensively. And I thought at times that they definitely did not. There was a lot of lapses throughout the game, sometimes late in the fourth quarter, where guys are just getting straight to the hole. Like Duncan Robinson's getting straight to the hole. Hero's doing whatever the hell he wants. But when they are locked in and they are that defensive identity that we know this team can be, and they go up against a team like Miami that's almost always like that, it's just fun to watch two hard-working, bust-your-asses teams mash in a war of attrition. So
yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Was it fun?
Aiden, I had fun, but I want to ask you, Aiden, do you think that is you? Don't you just think that's a consequence of the bench? Because for me, the starters have pretty consistently been good. The bench, not so much. And so whenever the defense fell apart, it's been like, oh, there's 3 bench players here. Delano's making mistakes, whatever. I've been okay with the starters.
I mean, I think like Koloko struggled this game.
Yeah. He's a bench
and
guy. Like,
he's a bench guy.
know.
So
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not even. It's also like you're probably yes, you're right. Although I do recall like even Gary or OG making the odds slip up, but in the fourth quarter for the most part they tamped down. But I think you have a guy like Koloko and it f's everything else up, and it might not even necessarily be somebody else's fault, but because of like Koloko's misread or whatever else that it just seemed like at times there was miscues or like they weren't ready, they weren't set when Hero is just kind of having his way early, things like that. So I get frustrated with that because we saw for the final 6-7 minutes of that fourth quarter, like if these guys are locked in full on, it's very and then they get a couple of steals, like they're so deadly in transition off steals. They really excel. But yeah. I thought Flynn played great defense too. I want to shout out Flynn. Like I thought he showed up, had a nice 3, and played some good D on Gabe Vincent.
Yeah, the name of the game in this one was defense. I think for both teams, neither team shot over 40%. This is like your classic Raptors Heat game. I don't know how the Heat shot 34.9%, 8 for 34 from 3. I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a theme for them this season, trying to create, I guess, especially in the half court. They just looked confused. A lot of guys like Max Strus, Gabe Vincent didn't give them, the shots they needed. Bam Adebayo at one point was just fishing for fouls left and right. Kyle Lowry, unfortunately enough for the Heat, 36 minutes played, and it hurts me to say this a lot, guys. 1 for 8, 7 points, few rebounds.
I think he was hungover. Someone said Drake had his birthday in Miami last night, so I think Kyle was hungover, which is good for us.
Yeah, which is good, which is great. And that's an allegation that Oren's going to stick to, and myself, Kyle, and Aiden are going to step back from. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, Tyler Herro was 8 for 18. He was probably the best player for Miami in this game beside Jimmy Butler. Somehow, some way, Tyler Herro grabbed 15 rebounds in this. I don't know if that's more of an indictment on the Miami Heat or I guess the fact that they just, besides Bam Adebayo, they don't really have, dominant front court players. I mean, Bam Adebayo can give you that 10 or so rebounds a night, but he was 4 for 14, right? So he didn't give the Miami Heat what they needed as well. Miami just looks like a team that's struggling a lot. So Toronto was coming into this game a day's rest. They lost on the second half or the second game of the back-to-back and the last one, which kind of just felt like, I felt like I was kind of expecting it. I feel like Miami's one of the worst teams to face on the second game of a back-to-back. They walked into Miami. They just looked tired, exhausted, flat shots a couple days ago. And now they came into this game. They look rejuvenated. Guys, can we talk about one player specifically? Precious Achiuwa, guys. He had some key minutes in this game. He played 34 minutes. Chris Boucher only 12 because he was in foul trouble the majority of the game. Oren said just before we started that he was shocked.
Fouls. Very questionable.
Yeah, he was shocked that Chris didn't get back in the game. Precious looked good though, guys, and I didn't realize it until I looked at the box score. He had 22 rebounds in this game. I don't know if you guys saw that either, but 10 points, 22 rebounds, and he was a plus 10 in this game. Aiden, did you like what you saw from Precious in this one?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think we're at the stage of a player's career like Precious where it's just going to be like salt and vinegar. Like some days it's going to be like refined, and I don't know where I'm going to go with this analogy, but like, he has elite moves
Tangy.
to the rack. What?
Tangy. Oh,
yeah, and then the vinegar is just going to be, like rancid. Like, what are you doing? And we've seen that in the first couple of games. He's not had his best foot forward. It's kind of like Boucher last year. Like, I like that Precious had a mindset tonight of like, I'm gonna rebound. I'm just gonna be the dog out there. Obviously, he has a thing against Bam. I would too. Bam's starting to really rub me the wrong way as kind of like a petulant player. And it kind of stood out tonight to me. And Precious always plays hard against him and proved himself to be as good, if not better, in this particular showing. So yeah, it was impressive. And my whole point was going to be, I like that, like Boucher last year, Precious, like, I'm going back to the basics. I'm going back to what I know I can immediately help this team with it. And that's just like shaking things up, hitting the rim, hitting the boards hard.
Yeah.
Or-
For me, the
or
guy
what do you
that's
think
starting to
about that?
piss me off is Tyler Hero.
Oh yeah, well,
Oh,
that happened
man.
last game for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And
it
today
happened like 3 years ago,
like,
man.
he talks way too much shit for being the fourth best player on a team. That's all I have to say about Tyler Hero. But no, I'll talk about Precious. Like, it was the most a Raptor has ever rebounded off the bench, 22 rebounds. And I think it was like the fifth highest rebounding game in Raptors history, including like starters. So he's always kind of had that rebounding in his game. I think he's
Always.
just kind of never played starter minutes and played the five exclusively to where he could really show that. And also, like, he just won't box out sometimes, so it's on him too. But you could, like, there were glimpses of this, I think, and now that he's shown it, like, you know, I think the Raptors coaches are going to ask him to do it more consistently, which would really help a Raptors team that struggles on the defensive boards. But it's really nice to see, and like, the rebounding is only one small part of the puzzle. I think the last two games for Precious were maybe the two best back-to-back games of like his career. Like, I really think he's been amazing.
It should be worth mentioning. I don't want to detract from Precious's performance. It's worth mentioning, like, both teams are shooting like, you know, 40% from the field. A lot of rebounds to go around. A lot of free rebounds floating around out there.
Mhm.
And I did think it is worth mentioning the Heat shot 23.5% from three. Like, maybe it's just, is this a good Raptors performance, or the Heat just like kind of unlucky? There's just
I think it was a very good Raptors performance.
And the
personally.
Raptors
I think a lot of
shot.
those. I think a lot of those threes were pretty contested. Like, yeah, I think the Raptors played really good defense tonight.
Even some of those threes they hit were contested, but the Raptors shooting 44% from three is definitely a variance. So, like,
yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, maybe
this
the two
is just run
combined.
bad. Typical Heat run bad.
Yeah, and the Raptors did win this game by 8 points, sorry. And the Heat shot 27 free throws. They were 24 for 27, almost 90% from the line. So this could have got a lot worse for the Heat for, you know, at least when you look at the box score and you look at, you know, like Kyle mentioned, 23.5% from beyond the arc, 35% from the field. The Heat, I got to give them credit though, you know, at halftime at least, the Raptors were forcing tons of turnovers. The Heat were getting crushed on the glass. The Raptors were limiting the Heat from getting second chances and generating their own in the first half. They led 7-2 in offensive rebounds, team offensive rebounds at halftime. And then the Heat kind of just closed that gap. I mean, if you're looking at it now, the box score, you know, the Raptors lead 52-46 in total rebounds. Offensive rebounds is really close, 10-8. Even, you know, turnovers, points off turnovers. The big gap you see is fast break points between the two teams. And that just proves, I think, for me that, you know, the Raptors off these turnovers were in transition. And a lot of times when the Heat were forcing these turnovers, they were okay with just bringing up the ball slowly, kind of getting into their half-court sets, letting the Raptors set up. And the Raptors are probably a team, at least defensively, that you don't want to do that to. You're trying to get them, you know, out of sorts defensively. You don't want them to set up in the half-court because we saw at times guys like OG Anunoby, what they were doing to Bam Adebayo. Again, Bam Adebayo, 4 for 14. You know, a lot of Bam's points were him just trudging to the rim, getting those free throws, or, you know, a lot of tough shots. The one he hit over Chris Boucher when Chris Boucher went straight up with two hands, I believe in the third quarter. Tough shot. Like, a lot of tough shots were being made by Miami. This could have gone way worse, I think, for the Miami Heat, considering everything. Only 19 assists as a team in the game from Miami. This wasn't a great game. This wasn't a great game for Miami. I mean, their broadcaster said it themselves. This is probably going to be one of the worst. This is the worst game of the season so far for them, but this is probably going to be one of the worst when they look back at it, just overall in terms of shot making, defense, everything. So,
what do you mean the broadcaster said it? You weren't listening to Alvin and Matt?
Oh no, I go back and forth. You guys know me by now. I'm going back and forth all the time. I love listening to away broadcast. Like, I just love hearing their perspective on things. And plus, the guys they mentioned, which was so cool for, I guess, Oren and obviously Aiden and Kyle and all of us, that are part of the Raptors community, listening to the story behind Amy Audemars, who got
Yeah, that
hired
was cool.
by
I
the
saw that.
Miami Heat. That was amazing, right? And they
Yeah,
mentioned
well
her. And
deserved for Amy, man.
yeah, they had a
Sportsnet
whole segment
effed up
for her.
not giving her
Crazy.
a bigger job, in my opinion, because she's really good at what she does.
And she's a great
from
person too.
Florida anyway. She went to school in South Florida, right? Or
Yeah,
went to
she's
school
from
in Miami.
Niagara, but she went to school in
Yeah.
Miami.
So good for her. That's kind of like a home for her.
I know,
Yeah.
Warren, you want to talk about the end of the game, but I quickly wanted to say also with defense, Toronto's transition defense has been really bad this year, I feel like.
Yes.
I don't have data on it, but it just, especially in the Nets game, I remember, and this game, it's just like over and over. And I don't know if it's a consequence of long rebounds or what, but that's something that it's also starters are guilty of, and something to keep an eye on. There's certainly that they can clean up too.
Yeah, it might be a case of. Go ahead.
You might be saying the same thing. I think it's a case of like glass crashing. It seems like a lot of times there's so many people trying to offensive rebound. There was one possession tonight where there were like 5 guys below the free throw line, and a long rebound bounced to Jimmy Butler, just like he was within like 30 feet.
Well, that one Jimmy didn't even go back on.
Yeah,
he just like lingered on center.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, and just like it might be also a case of teams figuring out the Raptors a bit more, because last season they somehow had like as the second highest offensive rebounding rate and the best defensive transition defense, and like usually those two things don't correlate, and maybe this season that just hasn't been able to happen because teams have made a little bit more of an effort to get out in transition against them. Which I think, I really think if you look at the last 4 games, like that has been a part of every team's game plan. And the Heat kind of do it anyway with these like throw ahead passes that Kyle and Jimmy love. Yeah. But I tweeted about like Gary Trent Jr., who I don't know if this might segue if we could pull up the clip, Keon, about Gary Trent Jr. kind of missing Tyler Hero assignment in transition D actually at the end of the game, because Gary twice shot a 3 from above the arc, held it like he was Kobe for a long time, and then didn't get back in transition. And then there was a dunk twice. And it's like, yes, the other guard also should get back. Whoever is at the top of the key should also get back. But if you're Gary, you don't need to hold it that long, especially if you're going to miss. Like, you need to get back and mark up your guy in transition. And then this could have killed the Raptors, this shot right here, where Gary just doesn't match up in transition. Like, Pascal is telling him from here, take him. He doesn't take him. Yeah. And it's a 3 for, it's a pretty open 3. We can play it again, please. It's a pretty open 3 for Hero. So like, it's simple things like that. I have not liked Gary Trent Jr.'s defense to start the season at all. And I think he's a big part of those transition problems.
He was also getting just obliterated on back cuts and off ball stuff tonight. Like Hero had had Gary lost, completely roasted him on some off ball stuff, like looking embarrassingly bad. And this is the guy last year took a big step forward defensively and was praised by us, by his coach, by his teammates, and not looking good.
He's reminding me too much of Norman Powell on the defensive end.
But the difference is Normie didn't lack the will. He just lacked the like awareness. I feel like it just wasn't in his nature to really lock in defensively. Gary does lock in, and then he just kind of frigs about for a while.
That's true. That's fair. He's for sure locked in. I don't have a problem with that. It's the mental lapses.
I think he will eventually beat the Norm Powell allegations, but until then, like we have a right to be critical. It's been a bad year.
Right. I also wanted to talk about the Siakam bucket, which I'll pull up to close out the game. Just because like there's been a whole lot of talk about like, yeah, Siakam's good, but is he a good number 1 option?
That's a killer shot.
I know.
This is a crazy shot. Guys, he played the whole 4th quarter. Which we should talk about this. Like, we should talk about the minutes thing. But this guy played the whole 4th quarter, 12 minutes in, he's hitting this shot after, he's a two-way player. He does a lot on defense in terms of the court coverage. This is some superstar shit.
He missed the one before, and I already have the feeling going back to the shot where in my mind I'm like, for all of the haters out there, please hit this shot. Like, I don't want to have to start defending about clutch Pascal again. And like, And at the same time, I kind of had the feeling that it was going in, which is also to me an indicator of where Pascal's at this year. Like he didn't have the best game, but I still felt very strong and confident with the ball in his hands. And that's something that like up until, like part of last year, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I watched Pascal in this game,
not
and
having any of it.
no,
I guess whatever.
I watched Pascal in this game, and I think I'm starting to come to more of a conclusion that the Raptors might have a superstar. I didn't even realize, Oren, that he played the entire fourth quarter. When you watch Pascal offensively and defensively, yeah, he shouldn't have. But when you watch him offensively and defensively, he is elite on both ends. And you don't see that from, I don't know if you see that from 12, 15 players in the league. I don't know where that places Pascal among the league's best, but this is a guy that, in terms of teams that really rely on one player, Pascal's that guy, I think, for Toronto. That doesn't mean that, you can't rely on an OG, you can't rely on a Gary Trent or a Fred, but I think Pascal's become that guy. He's taken that next leap in terms of his ability, where when the Raptors need a bucket, it goes to Pascal. There's no more, let's give it to Fred because he's hot, or let's give it to Gary or this guy. Pascal's usually that guy that when they need a bucket, whether it's the end of the third or beginning of the second quarter or whatever it is, the Heat are on a run, 8-0 run or whatever it is in the second quarter, they need a bucket, they're going to Pascal. And I think this is one of the best developments the Raptors could have from this season, is that they may have a bona fide all-NBA player, and there's no questions asked about it, like at all.
This is all that matters this season for me.
Yeah.
Freddie, welcome to the show. Shout out Raptors Republic.
Wow, that's commitment.
It's true.
You could be on here.
It's true. Like, guys, think back. All 4 games, who's been the best player on both sides of the floor?
Yeah.
Like, Siakam's been the best player in all 4 games.
Yeah.
Against KD, against, Jimmy, you can go on the list. So that's all that matters this season so far.
I was watching the game with my friends, and I was telling them,
name
this
them.
offseason.
Yeah.
What?
Name them. I'm joking.
No names be named here, man. I was telling my friend Schmanner. No, but we were learning more about Pascal at the training camp, and they just talked about his work ethic. So for like people who aren't aware, like Pascal works his tail off to get to where he's at. So like to even if those doubt that this isn't real or it's unsustainable, like it's possible this isn't even his height yet because he works so darn hard. And now it's not just the scoring, it's the distribution as well. Like he's making the right passes early, and sometimes he's making the right pass even though it's simple. And I think that's kind of like a growth in the game. Sometimes you pass when it's the last minute or like last resort. And I think Pascal looks way more comfortable being ball dominant and making the right choice at the right time.
It was not a good night from the field, and that needs to be acknowledged, but there was nothing they could get going on offense, especially in the fourth quarter. He was the only hope they ever had. And a lot of it is not even like putting up shots or even like creating an assist or a shot like through a dribble drive or whatever. It's mostly just him receiving the ball on one side of the floor and collapsing like the entire defense towards him. They're pre-rotating like crazy. And then you get the swing stuff that opens everything up. I mean, he's the only person on the Raptors, at least tonight, who was able to draw help from the Heat at all. Every other Raptors player the Heat were basically content with going straight up against, and to varying degrees of success. But Pascal is the only guy who actually like can manipulate a defense purely on the catch, not on the dribble, not coming off the screen, like on the catch, which is important.
Yeah, and you see Freddie doesn't, and like there was a couple of times tonight that again is like old usage Freddie, where he's just kind of dribbling around and doing circuits in the court and just head down, and it's just so not. I know he can do it, and there's times where he should, but he's so persistent. It's like, dude, just give up the ball. You didn't work this time. Let's do something else.
Yeah, some of those Fred possessions look like when you see the clips of basketball in the 1950s before there was a half-court line and a shot clock, and there was like a possession. You had to keep possession, like
Yeah, they
dribbling around
go,
in circles in your own
yeah.
half. Like some of those Fred possessions look like he's
And
looking like Bob Cousy.
And I think like before, like not to get overjoyous about the W, but I think it is real. Like Kyle, you hit it. You hit it on the head. There is that like there's one dude that manipulates offense on this team. Sometimes it's Gary in the midcourt when he's feeling it, but and Freddie when he spreads the court out when he's hitting his three. But that's it, and like that's really concerning, especially with Scotty being out for a little while.
Yeah, I had in my notes that like when Fred dominates the game like this, which part of it was welcome. Like I have to say, at the start of the game, some of that offense the Raptors needed after he's been so, off ball, and especially with Scotty out. But there does seem to be this thing that where Fred dominates the game, OG does not find a way to get involved. Or like Gary, one of them is always frozen out if Fred is on ball. And in this game, OG had 4 shots, and that is just not a sustainable way to go through this season with OG playing that little of a role in the offense. And like he's been very disappointing to start the season, don't get me wrong, but you have to again, like I want to talk about the minutes thing because like this is not a sustainable way to go through this season. Siakam cannot play the whole fourth quarters, and then we expect him in the conference finals to be good. You know what I mean? Like
42
that
minutes.
is just that is just not a realistic pathway.
Realistically, though, Oren, do you think he would have played that 42 minutes if Chris Boucher wasn't in that type of kind of insane foul trouble? We were all watching the game. And I was confused at 2 or 3 of them.
Because like Thad Young didn't play at all, which I didn't understand. There's always going to be excuses. Like Nick has to find ways to get more minutes for his bench. He just has to.
It's tough also in OG's case because the Heat run a lot more zone than most teams. And I think when you look at OG, he can't. It's tough for OG to be a ball handler in a zone that the Heat employ as well as probably any team in the league. It's tough. You have to have him out there as a spacer, as a zone breaker in the corner, wherever you place him, at the dunker spot. You can't. It's really tough to have OG as a ball handler. So a lot of times he was stuck in a corner or stuck on the elbow, and he just wasn't receiving the ball. I think some of it, though, I was watching OG in a lot of possessions. Guys, you have to admit, like, there has to come a time where you demand the ball. I just felt like a lot of times OG just wasn't anywhere near the ball. He was kind of running almost away from it on most possessions. It would be on the strong side, OG's on the weak side. It was, I just didn't understand it from that perspective. Like, I'm getting a little bit exhausted of, when OG kind of just like shrugging off his 4-shot attempted games and 6-shot attempted games because, I feel like every single time we're making different excuses for him. At one point or another, I'm going to want to see something from OG in terms of him demanding the ball and saying, you know what, give me the ball. Let me figure this out. Give me an isolation. It feels like OG, he gets those opportunities early, and Nick Nurse always gets him involved in the first quarter, and then it just tails off. I don't know if he loses confidence or what it is, but OG, I got to give him credit. And whatever he gave away, I guess, offensively, he gave it back defensively for the Raptors. He was incredible defensively. There was one play that I highlighted that Keon, I think, actually posted from the Raptors Republic account where OG had a very hard closeout and then relocated to the corner, tipped it, grabbed that steal. I believe it was Pascal or him that grabbed that steal from Tyler Harrow.
Yeah, in the corner.
Absolutely fantastic play. Such a hard closeout from OG.
Is perfect.
Yeah, and then it results in a bucket as well. So you get the Raptors win twofold there. Just incredible. This is what all NBA kind of defensive talents do. And OG did that.
I think it is a confidence issue. Like he's really struggled in these games so far. Like he still hasn't really figured out how to operate in the lane with any kind of control. And I think he might have just been intimidated, to be honest. Like I don't think in any explicit way, but I think he was happier like taking a little bit more of a passive role in this game. He was elite on the defensive end, and I will love OG forever for that. But like, if we are really going to make the next step, he needs to start figuring out what works for him on the offense. And I do think you're right. It's on Nurse to get him going. Like when he gets downhill, I talked about this in my 5 things last week, and we did this with Scotty last year. when you get these guys downhill through a play instead of them having to create on their own, they're so precious too. They're so difficult to guard in traffic, and like I think they need to design more for him when they're not putting Pascal and ISO or Freddie and Pascal on pick and roll.
Yeah, especially with everything I said, especially with the fact that Scotty Barnes isn't playing tonight. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now you have a lot more opportunities to handle the ball. You have a lot more opportunities for plays to be ran for you. And I think just 4 shots, no matter the consequences, is great. I mean, someone did, mention it that OG was a plus 16. He was great in this game overall. I think he did a good job. I just think if he could just mesh, a very good offensive game with the elite defensive capabilities that we know we can get from OG, I think that's when not just OG takes the next step, but the entire team can take the next step.
Yeah,
Oren
I
and
thought he
Kyle,
lost his confidence in this game when Kyle Lowry took a charge on him. Like first quarter, I think. He drove into the lane. Kyle got there first, and it really felt like from that point onward, he just did not see the ball.
Was that the one where Kyle like peekabooed? He literally,
Like
I don't know if it was
a little.
Yeah, he just like he was hidden behind somebody. And he's totally like, "There's Kyle."
Comes out of
like,
nowhere.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Such an asshole, that guy.
Yeah.
And
that was his first charge he took this season.
Was it?
It was.
What's crazy? They said on the Heat broadcast that he led the league in charges last season, which is crazy because he played like 50 games, 60 games.
Was second?
Like, was it Harrell?
I'm pretty sure it's Blake Griffin.
Oh,
he's
last season.
He's another charge master.
Man, you know who was the ultimate, the kind of a diversion? Ursan Ilyasova, for whatever reason, was like the charge master forever, and I never. Really
There's a new one. I was watching the OKC game. Jalen Williams, he's like a
new
huge charge taker, and he got a couple last night. And I was like, the center, Jalen Williams, the center.
Well, Brendan's gonna love to hear that.
I was gonna say though, talking about Kyle Lowry, like on that last play of the game, all I guess we can call it a series because like these 2-game things are like mini series. I really like them, but Siakam has had a lot of success in this season so far because guards he's just posting up and driving them really low under the basket in isolations, and then bigs he's taking off the dribble, he's too fast. But Kyle is uniquely suited to like he can't get shit against. He can't get anything against Kyle because Kyle's too strong, right? So when he tries to put Kyle in the basket, it's not working for him. But on that last play of the game, I'll pull it up again here. I'm pretty sure Kyle. No, it was like a play before where Kyle like had Siakam, and he kept digging in and reaching, and it felt like in previous seasons, like Pascal just would have like not been able to do anything with it, and he kind of he got his way out of it, and I think somehow like either got a switch or found someone else, but it was a little like the son is turning into the father moment.
Those are charge leaders last year.
Oh, so he just didn't lead the league in charges. They lied to me.
You lied.
Maybe like per game,
per
game basis.
Per game, probably. Oh, but only a couple behind.
We should. I don't know how you guys feel about the series element of things. I think the league is going to this a lot. This sort of 2 games in a row. I couldn't be a bigger fan of it. I love watching. You can see real-time adjustments between games. It's better for the players. You don't have to travel as much. I'm sure all these guys would appreciate not having to travel all around the country seemingly mindlessly. It's better for the environment. You don't have to take a plane all the way across the country and then back again. It's I don't know. I think it's really good. I can't imagine anyone having an issue with it other than if you're like a super casual fan who's like, I saw this team last night. I'm bored.
Well, I have a counterpoint, which I didn't think of, which is that it isn't great for ticket sales. Like, unless you have a high, like demand for both games, like you might not want to see Miami 2 times in a row, like within 3 days, right? Whereas if they were separate 6 months apart, you might.
Can I just say
it would be interesting to see the data on those games, like at the end of the season.
You make a good point in theory. I will say if your city is having trouble selling tickets to an NBA game, just move the team. I don't care.
Yeah, Europe.
Just move.
But they already are. But they are.
Exactly.
Good. Do it quickly.
The Raptors aren't though.
Yeah, the Raptors.
We don't deal with these issues.
We'll never have a problem.
Yeah, but that's just
let Charlotte fucking worry about that.
Whoa! Swear jar.
Put another one in.
Not allowed to
It's-
swear,
it's
guys.
too- it's
too
And
far.
second of
It's
all,
over.
I already swore, so it's done. Once one person swears, you might
Okay,
as
so
well
we
just
can really
The
let it
F-bomb
slide.
is like high grade swearing. It's a
Yeah.
Okay, we have to talk
Raptors-
about this because I
Sorry,
never agreed
podcast
on not
listeners.
swearing. I don't know when this came into effect.
Daddy Zarar.
Yeah.
He said that like
the
once
Raptor-
casual.
The, the Raptor. Come on.
That's so funny to say about your boss. Yeah, he was pretty casual about it. I didn't really. It
He's
was
a
an
casual
instruction.
boss.
It was pretty. It was like a direct order, but like he said delivered it pretty casual.
I don't think of Zarar as my boss. He's a
In a way.
coworker.
Rewinding
Anyways.
a bit, guys, to the beginning of this game. I know we were talking about 2-game sets for a little bit. Just rewinding a little bit. Going into this game, the Raptors starting lineup changed a little bit with Scotty Barnes out. I'm just going to ask, I guess, each of you guys, were you guys shocked at the fact that Nick Nurse threw in the rookie Christian Koloko into the game? And by the way, there was a little cool stat. I believe Christian Koloko and Pascal Siakam playing beside or starting beside each other is the first time ever in NBA history 2 players born in Cameroon started for the same team in the same game, which was pretty cool to see. Any firsts in NBA history are pretty cool, but were you guys shocked at the Koloko starting? I know there was some obviously thought behind it with Nick Nurse where he wanted to keep the bench intact. Were you guys okay with it? And have you guys liked what you saw from Christian Koloko, I guess, so far this season in this game? Oren.
I can go ahead. Like, I wasn't shocked with Koloko because I like the idea of Boucher and Precious coming in together. However, 18 minutes is a little bit much for me considering he wasn't very good tonight. And no Thad Young minutes, like Koloko getting those minutes instead of a guy like Thad Young after the first stretch, I don't really understand it. Like, when we talk about these defensive breakdowns and stuff like that, I think a lot of that comes from the youth of guys like Koloko. And I would rather see, like tonight, obviously Precious played his way into 34 minutes, but in the last few games, I'd rather see Precious eat the bulk of these minutes, Thad get some more minutes than heavy Koloko minutes, personally.
Yeah.
They seem to really go after. I mean, the first 10 possessions of the game for either team was like Raptors attacking hero, and then the Heat putting Koloko in high pick and roll, and it was like back and forth forever. And they're really going to test. I think a lot of teams. This is kind of the blueprint against young bigs. Like, just hey, let's get them up by the 3-point arc. Let's see if you can switch. Let's see if you can hedge. Let's see what it like. Are they going to force him to drop? Can he do anything? Can he read coverages at all at his age? So it's going to look really ugly, especially the beginning part of his career. And I kind of agree. Like, this is maybe a situation where you mix him in against bench units and not against the Heat starters.
Yeah, show of support for starting him, I think, at the very least. And then I agree balancing the bench. And then I also agree that against a team like Miami, whose starting 5 are savvy AF, a guy like Koloko's gonna get exploited fairly quickly if he doesn't like just have one of those games where everything conveniently clicks. And so yes, they did overplay him.
Yeah,
I think it's tough, guys, because I don't know, for Nick Nurse, you're in a situation where Thad Young hasn't looked good at all this year so far. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
we're only a few games in, right? Now we're four games in, I believe. And Thad Young hasn't looked good at all. But at the same time, you look at the other side, it's like, who are you going to give the minutes to? Again, normally I think Chris Boucher would eat up some of those minutes that Thad, didn't have, I guess, and you wouldn't expect Christian Koloko. Christian Koloko, the game before, I think had 20 minutes. So, I mean, I guess Nick Nurse is just at this point now where he's just okay with playing Christian Koloko 15 to 20 minutes a game. I didn't expect it at all. To be honest, I didn't even expect him to get 10 minutes consistently during the season. I thought he was going to be in and out of the rotation. But I think I'm with Oren. I think I'm with all of you guys. And I think it's just a little too much for Christian at this point in his career. And I think you give maybe Thad those minutes. We did see Malachi Flynn play a little bit in this game as well. And speaking of more history that was made, Fred VanVleet with his first 3 of the game took over Morris Peterson and the all-time 3 leaderboard for the Raptors. I don't know if Fred's there already. I mean, it's quick. Fred hasn't been with Toronto for a long time.
He's going to have that.
Raptors.
He's coming for Kyle quickly.
Yeah. So that was some more history.
I want to go
So-
back though to like the Thaddeus Young point, and like this
Yeah.
is my biggest issue with Nick Nurse as a coach is like, is the chicken coming before the egg? Like, Thad is an older guy. He needs some minutes to find a rhythm, and he hasn't found it this season. But you can't give him 2 minutes here and 3 minutes there and expect him to find it. Like, give Thad some minutes. The bench is already tanking minutes. Why aren't we giving a guy who we know has really good upside in Thad Young? Like, if we're gonna tank minutes, at least play him into rhythm while we're doing it. I'd personally rather that than Koloko getting all these minutes. And like, same with Flynn. What is this first half Banton, second half Flynn bull?
It's
Like,
so bad.
pick a guy,
they
give him a real chance, and move on. If he doesn't work, then choose the other guy. Like, these guys need to play themselves into rhythms, and right now he's not giving them the ability to.
I kind of thought Thad didn't play terribly last game. He is looking a step slow on
He did.
defense, but I agree. Like the lack of rotational consistency on the bench is just that's not good for anybody. Like even if it was every other game, be like, okay, Flynn. Like stylistically, we like Flynn against Miami because they're smaller in the backcourt. We're doing Flynn tonight. And just give him those 10 minutes to see if he can get cooking. Like I made a joke that I'm like, every shot he takes is like worth like 10 minutes of playing time because he has such a limited amount of time to demonstrate his value to this team. And yeah, it's been a bone to pick with Nurse for 2 years now. When we come to the playoffs, when there's an injury or a foul out, which inevitably happens, no one's in like any sort of like rhythm, as Oren's saying, to provide in an actual way because they've just been inconsistently playing all year.
And more important than that, we saw what happened to Fred VanVleet last season. Pascal cannot play 40 minutes a game and be expected to perform in the playoffs. Like, if the goals this year are larger and to win a playoff round, then you have to buy the starters rest.
The frustration, I think, maybe even more so is that, and this might just be a bigger conversation, but they need to find at some point, if Pascal is going to have to play this many minutes, they're going to have to find him rest days. And I'm really, really not confident with the prospect of like playing an entire game without Pascal as of right now. That just looks like an immediate loss to me. So they could probably get away with giving Pascal heavy minutes and keeping this bench thing going if they give him some days off. I just don't know what team the Raptors are good enough to beat no Pascal as of right now.
Yeah, maybe like Charlotte, but you're right. No, there's not many.
So he gets 2 games off a year.
Yeah. This isn't Kawhi. I never play a back-to-back again in my life, Leonard.
Is there anyone, I guess, in the rotation that you guys would have liked to see in this game that didn't get an opportunity other than Thaddeus Young? I know some people have mentioned Hernan Gomez, who played in the first game and the second game, I believe. Justin Champagny, I don't know if he's played a minute yet this season.
Give me Champagny minutes, baby. Especially against a team like Miami where the scoring isn't really going to be an issue. It's just going to be about mucking it up. Like, throw him in there, give us some minutes. Get a couple offensive rebounds.
Yeah, I mean, because rebounds just came so easy. I mean, at least the Precious. Every shot wasn't falling for the Heat in this game. I'm going through the rest of the game, guys. I know we do have a tweet.
Does anyone understand this comment?
No.
Like, he picked one with Benton and Flynn. No, he didn't. He picked Benton for the first half and Flynn for the second. Like, and I didn't understand. Benton had a really bad first stint, and then he got again out there in the second quarter. And I was like, okay, so you're riding with Banton tonight, fine. And then Flynn comes in the third quarter. It's just like, did you premeditate this? Because if you didn't premeditate it, then why wouldn't Flynn just get those second quarter minutes after Banton coming out so flat? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, to me, it's like, pick 9 guys tonight, stick with those 9 guys. Like, give them some room to figure each other out and stuff.
I'm starting to feel a little bit warmer about Flynn too. I feel like there's good things on his horizon. He just needs the volume and time to do it.
I really think Flynn is like ahead of Banton right now. Just like he's a more polished player. I like Banton's upside, but like Flynn right now, he just does more successfully.
They also need the spacing so badly. They need the spacing so badly. And Flynn's like one of the few guys who, in theory, can space the floor, whereas Banton is just a non-floor spacer at the moment.
Yeah, like Gary played 42 minutes tonight, and I
They need
guess
someone in the corner.
the spacing really badly, but he did not play well enough to justify a 42-minute night for me. But it is what it is. All right, tweet of the night.
Timely shots, yeah.
I'll do the tweet of the night. In the meantime, if you guys want to do any of the other segments, if anyone has a play of the game or something, just drop it in the chat. But tweet of the night goes to Liban Osman. Shout out to Liban at the Star. I like this from the Last Dance doc. Rodman talking about his rebounding.
Yeah. It's hard without the context of the video, but
yeah. I think a lot of people have seen The Last Dance, though.
It's true.
That is an epic segment.
Yeah, it's the best part of the dog, I swear.
No, that's up for debate, but I do love the sound effects where he's like, and he's like making the sound the ball makes coming off the rim.
Yeah, that has been so funny. I think it was especially good for, I think, Precious, because he did it against the Miami Heat, and all those guys over there have a very good relationship with him. I know Bam is very, very close to Precious Achiuwa, so it's cool for him to have, I guess, so far the best game of the season for him. Just absolutely dominating the boards. He himself having 22, almost had half of the total rebounds that Miami had today. They had 46, he had 22, so almost half. Insane. And like Kyle said, it's much easier when every shot misses defensively or offensively for the Miami Heat, defensively for the Raptors. Is there anything else you guys want to add to this?
I'll do this for best play of the game, even though it's not the best play of the game. It's a good play. Look at this pass, though. Pascal had a few of these. What's up?
Can you zoom in or what?
Oh, yeah. Pascal had a few of these passes to Gary. He also had like a bounce pass that was like, there was like three guys around him, and he had his back turned to Gary, and he like bounced it. But this one was also really nice, where like, look at the Heat's defense. 5 guys are like looking at him, and he just right on the money to Gary. So this is a good play. Maybe we'll give it the play of the game.
I wrote about this as well, but also look at Precious cut, and he did that later in the game too. He cut baseline, and that is one way to alleviate all of that, like that smushing in the middle is cutting. And I don't think the Raptors necessarily do enough of it. Part of that is to create the 3-point spacing, but I like that Precious moves there.
Yeah,
I don't want to do too much kind of film diagnosis, take away from the podcast listeners, because they won't know what the hell's going on. But if we could go back to that clip really quickly, I was very close. I was
that being
very,
said,
very.
I'm gonna do exactly.
I'm gonna do exactly what I said I wouldn't do. I was very close to blaming Kyle Lowry on this play, because he just seems like the guy that's closing out super hard. Maybe he came a little too deep, but I see what he was trying to do. He's trying to stop this. He's in that lane that Precious Achiuwa is cutting in. And I think if he doesn't, get into that lane, that's an easy kind of dump off pass to Precious Achiuwa, and Precious finishes at the rim, because Bam just cannot, Dwayne Dedmon in that case just cannot turn around fast enough. Duncan Robinson on the elbow, I think, just has to shade in between Gary and Precious a little more. He was just caught ball watching. I mean, the whole
he got stuck.
Yeah, he just got stuck. Everybody was ball watching, but I think Lowry did the right thing in stepping up, kind of cutting off this little Precious cut, and then Duncan was just ball watching the entire time, was just caught in no man's land. And
this does remind me of the Kyrie play to end the Brooklyn game, where he was so hot, he just got all the defensive attention. The Raptors were like, someone else has to beat us. Like, that's what the Heat kind of said here. Kyle did do like double him when it might not have been scripted here. And I get that, like I think Robinson kind of has this cut. Maybe not. You know what I mean, though? Like, Kyle did say, I'm not letting Pascal beat me right now. And Gary, credit to Gary, because he knocked it down, but it's not like Gary was really hot this game. So it was a similar thing to me.
He probably saw Dedmon move over too, which means Coloco's behind him now. So I think Kyle literally saw all 5 Raptors on the floor and was in the optimal position to stop all 5 at one time.
Yeah, typical Kyle.
That's Closet Kyle, man. Hey, it's Closet Kyle.
Yeah.
Let's do Taxman and get out of here.
Yeah. Well, no cues? Yeah, no cues tonight.
Cues?
Couple cues?
Kenneth. canamtax.com 416-243-2912. Visit canamtax.com for all your tax needs. Guys, who's your player? Because I'm gonna be quite honest with you guys, because we're 50 minutes in now. My guy for this one, and you guys may disagree. I know a lot of you guys might say Precious, but I think for me it's OG defensively.
No, get out of here.
That's for me. That's my tax man. That's the guy that
He was good defensively, but
reason-
at what point are we going to stop talking about OG's defense? Like, the team just needs more for him offensively. So if this is about expectations, relative to expectations, like, we know he's a great defender, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
So that's why I can't give it to OG. It's against my laurels.
I appreciate the attempt. I appreciate the attempt of even starting a non-Precious conversation, but like it kind of has to be Precious, right? He's
Yeah,
like
22.
He had 22 rebounds. He had like the best game of his young career.
Yeah,
Maybe not the best, but he had a terrific
One
game,
of them.
and I also think that the rest of the Raptors basically stunk. So like it's a pretty easy one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to Scotty Barnes for having the Playboy jean jacket.
And the dance at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I was watching the other broadcast because my stream was bad and it was a Heat broadcast, so I missed all the fun stuff tonight. No,
he had he was kind of putting the moves on at the end of the game. I think it was him, like Jeff Down, maybe. Who was the other person dancing with him? I can't remember. One of the new guys.
Congratulations, Precious Achua. Has he won it this year? No, he hasn't, obviously.
don't think so. No, last
Precious
night.
Achua is your Can-Am Taxman player of the game.
Yeah, I did it alone last night, guys. Thanks for that.
No
one got the tax man. It was just me trying to get out of here.
Oh, okay, that's great. I mean, on that note, before you guys leave us tonight, we need you to subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube as well as our podcast channel. This was the wrap up where you found all four of us together on the same night. This, hopefully this happens often.
It's good to be back.
We'll see where we get all four of our hosts on. But again, this was the wrap up. Your Raptors defeated the Miami Heat 98-90, bringing the Raptors record to 2-2 on the season. The live show was produced by Keon Haddad, and that was it for myself, Oren Weisfeld, Aiden Moss, Kyle Brickman, and Can-Am Tax. Unfortunately, OG, I tried my best. I tried to put my neck out on the line for you, but Oren and Kyle shut it down.
I'm not having it.
It is what it is. We'll see you guys all soon. I believe Wednesday night is the next game. And Philly's
the 1-3
Philadelphia.
We got Philly.
They stink.
We'll see. Yeah,
They're gonna beat us on Wednesday. You're gonna eat your words.
No, they'll beat us, but they stink.
We'll see you guys next time.